Hey, James, welcome.
Thank you, Sean.
Uh, Great to have you along with us here today. Let's get right into it. So if you could start us off, maybe just talk a little bit about your experiences and what brought you to here today.
Yeah, I would say I had a little bit of a unconventional, foray into financial services and kind of into this wild world of crypto. After college, I went to the Air Force. I was a munitions maintenance officer. So I did that for 4 years. And my wife, Kate, and I decided, we wanted to have a little bit more control over where we were going to live and what our life was going to look like. So we made the decision to get out and move back here to Lexington, Kentucky, where we still are today. And then Kentucky, as you know, probably is the bourbon capital of the world. So it was only fitting, I think, that I got into the bourbon business when I got back. So I worked for a little bourbon company called Blanton's, which some people may have heard of, and did international business for them. So got to travel the world a little bit doing that. And then several years ago, a good friend of mine said, "Hey, James, I'm needing help. My book of business is getting a little too big. And I know you know a lot about investing. You've been investing for a long time, and I think you'd be a good fit." So I kind of reluctantly, but was excited to make the transition over to the financial services business. And he was at a regional broker dealer at the time. And I did that for a while and I enjoyed it. But again, the freedom thing kind of kept coming up. I wanted to have a little bit more control over kind of how I did business, what the vision of my practice looked like. And so late in 2020, I decided to go ahead and make the jump and start my own firm, Vermillion Private Wealth. And in that process of really just seeking and kind of thinking about what do I want to create and how can I best serve people and best serve my clients, I came across Adam and what he was doing with the CDAA. And, I'm kind of a long-term vision kind of guy. So I was really interested in particular in Bitcoin, but crypto as a whole, I guess, of what the future might look like and how this might play a role in my clients' lives and in their financial lives. So that's kind of how I ended up here with PlannerDAO and going through the CDAA process.
Awesome, I love it. From bourbon to crypto, that's just a path we should all aspire to.
I agree.
So in terms of currently what you're working on in your business, is there anything particular as it pertains to crypto that's going on in your business?
Well, I would say more broadly, I'm still in that position of just trying to build my firm. I really want to, I plan on doing this for 25 or 30 more years. So I don't want to just haphazardly jump into anything that's not going to have staying power, that's not going to set a foundation to where I can continue to serve clients in a really meaningful way, not just kind of going through the motions. So I'm trying to be really intentional about how I build my business, what tools I use, how I interact with my clients, all of those things. So that A, they get the maximum benefit, but B, that I also enjoy it, that I get to enjoy going to work every day and working with my clients. So where crypto for me kind of comes in, I'm a really patient person. And for me, it's all about education. I don't think I can help anybody if I don't have a kind of a foundational understanding of something to begin with. And this is still a very new space. There's a lot of activity, a lot of energy, and I really want to make sure that I'm putting myself in the best position to serve my clients. So I'm being a little bit measured, but for me, it's all about setting that foundation so that in the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, I can really provide the best value that I can.
Fantastic. And you mentioned earlier Adam Blumberg and the CDAA, which is obviously a huge resource. And I think it's one that sort of a common bond a lot of us share, that was often where we landed, and that in turn brought us into the DAO. So focusing more now on the DAO, obviously we're a global community of professionals and we rely on our members to lead through education, collaboration, and innovation. How are you contributing currently with your superpowers in crypto within the DAO?
Well, probably not enough. Let me start with that, but just being upfront. But I don't know if I'd call it a superpower, but I think one thing that I've kind of developed over the course of my life is the ability to kind of recognize trends that might be impactful, but be patient enough to see them through to the end. And I think a lot of times what happens is, you've got the very earliest adopters who kind of set the foundation for a new technology. And then it kind of creeps up, and then it just hits this blast off point, and people get really excited. And oftentimes they get down in the weeds and they kind of lose the vision, kind of the strategic overall impactful vision of what that is and what impact it's going to have. So I think I'm really good at taking a step back and kind of saying, there are going to be some ebbs and flows, and maybe ebbs and flows isn't the right word. Maybe it's just some jerky movements. And that's normal. I mean, I think back to the dot-com bubble, and, the internet was probably not ready for the financial side of things at that time. The technology wasn't ready. Companies were just slapping .com on the end of their name, and there was just this mass euphoria that took over. And we ended up with businesses that added no value to anything whatsoever, yet they were being valued at just astronomical, valuations. And a lot of people, what happened when that bubble burst, they kind of said this was all fake. It was meaningless. Like, this whole thing is garbage. And, obviously that wasn't the case, because in the next 2 decades, the internet grew to become just this massive part of everybody's lives, almost unavoidably. And, I think that's what's kind of happening right now with crypto, is a lot of people, because of the price action lately, because of some of the stuff being shaken out, let's say, they're gonna throw the whole thing away. And I think that's a major mistake. I think you need to keep your eye on the prize and really think about the technology and the longer term impact. So I love having those discussions with people in PlannerDAO, and just really hopefully providing some like long term perspective that these are still early days. There's going to be a lot more volatility to come. But that doesn't mean that the technology isn't valuable, or that the use cases that a lot of people see today aren't going to play out in the next, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Absolutely. And I think that .com example is so relevant and so analogous to what we're seeing now. And to your point, hopefully it trends out the same way, right? Where we shake out some of the junk, but what we're left with is some really core, valuable foundations from which to really build
Absolutely
the next generation off of. So looking forward now, in terms of is there a tool or a person or an insight you're currently searching for right now? In other words, who should we reach out to you, or who should we send your way?
It's an interesting question. And I go back to just this disconnect right now still between kind of traditional finance and this new digital asset class. And I still think they're kind of a long ways apart. And I would like to continue to see that gap shrink, because I do think they can play well together. But when you think about the conversations that are being had, especially online, where seems like everyone's on one side or another, it's either like, this is total junk and crazy and it's never going to work, right, or this is the next best thing, and in the next 6 months, it's going to change the world. And I don't really subscribe to either of those. But what I would like to see is people thinking more about how digital assets can be a part of a broader financial plan, instead of thinking you have to either go all in or none at all. And that's really where I'm focusing my time and energy, is thinking about how can I allocate in a meaningful way to my clients, but also in a way realizing that there are still some inherent risks, that they can capitalize off of things, but not go away from their broader plan and still reach their financial objectives, even if things don't work out the way we think they might. So I would just really like to see that gap in those two worlds continue to blend. And I understand that's going to take some time, and it's going to take some tools and the right people and thinkers to kind of merge those two communities into one.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up here and kind of staying on that topic of the future, where do you see this space in 5 years? What are you excited to be part of?
Oh, goodness, Sean. I hate making predictions, especially to me. 5 years is a really short time horizon. I like to think in decades, really, not even years, much less months or weeks. But what I would really like to see is just I would like to see some of the junk being kind of removed from the system. And again, I think it's natural that these things happen. There are always going to be people trying to take financial advantage of short-term trends. And then there are always going to be some really intelligent thinkers out there who can put together tools that all of us benefit from. And I think separating that, it reminds me of like the forest fire analogy, right? Like fires are never fun. Like they damage things. They, they're harmful to the wildlife in the area, but it opens up that canopy to allow sun to get to the bottom of the, bottom of the forest floor. And it really provides a new opportunity for new growth and like keeps that forest healthy into the next decades and next generations when it comes to a forest. And I think we need that, and it can be painful during the moment. And we're seeing that right now. But I think it's really important as well to kind of continue to weed out the bad and really hone in on what's healthy and what makes sense for people longer term. So that really didn't answer your question. That wasn't much of a prediction. If I had to make a prediction for 5 years, I would say there's going to be a lot more volatility, but there's also going to be a lot more adoption. So I think you just have to keep an eye towards the future and think about what that impact is going to be. And I'm looking, like I said, 20 years out, not 5.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it too, especially with the brush analogy. I think that's critical right now, that there's a lot out there. And I think we would benefit from stripping some of that back and kind of focusing just on what is truly valuable, right, in the space. So James,
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. This was fantastic. Appreciate you coming on. And we look forward to continuing to collaborate with you in the DAO.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean. I enjoyed it.
Have a great day.